Time to wake up. It's Saturday morning. Find some milk and cereal. Grab a bowl and spoon. No, a bigger spoon. Head to the living room and take a seat on the floor while Joseph and Chris present to you Saturday Morning Cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoon Boom! This is a show where we wake up with a Saturday morning sun, plop down in the living room floor with a big bowl of sugary cereal, and watch all your favorite cartoons, both old and new. I'm Joseph.
And I'm Chris.
And with us today is...
Oh, hey, guys. I'm Adrian.
Oh, Adrian. Hey, what's up?
Not much. Happy to be here. This is exciting.
Yeah, man. Welcome also to the Nerd Sloth Network. We are glad to have you. We welcome you with our long arms of nerdy approval.
Yeah, it's kind of like getting jumped into a gang, but instead of being beaten severely, I pretty much get to watch cartoons with you guys. So this is a lot more fun.
Me and Joseph joined a gang once by accident.
Accidentally, yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story, though, for another time.
I think we're still members. Is there an expiration date?
No, I think if you join a gang, I'm pretty sure you're in until you die, so...
Oh, yeah, because it's for life with the number 4. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is also 2016, and, I think there's a lot more, litigation, a lot more paperwork now. They actually have, chapter dues.
Ooh, I haven't spoken to our gang's HR for a while.
I haven't returned the paperwork yet, so I don't know.
Oh, man.
Getting back on track a little bit, Adrian is...
a little bit.
A little bit. Adrian is... from his podcast, Adrian Has Issues, and he's been a friend of ours for pretty much ever since the network started, even back when it was a network that will not be named.
The network that used to be an evil wizard?
Yeah, pretty much. We've been on a couple shows together already. There was a time when we did a crossover, and Adrian, myself, and Shaddai, who you've heard a couple times on this show, we crossed over to Comical Podcast and did their show for us, while they jumped over to Pillow Talk and did that show.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Adrian, anything you want to plug real quick before, or actually tell everybody where they can find you?
Wink.
All right. Well, Adrian Has Issues, real quick, is an interview show where I talk to comic book creators, comedians, musicians, and even some friends of mine, basically geeking out about the things we love, whether it's music, and occasionally... we actually decide to talk about something a little bit more in depth, but a lot of times it's just kicking back and having a lot of fun. My website is adrianhasissues.com. I'm on Twitter at Adrian Has Issues, and Facebook, coincidentally, Adrian Has Issues there as well.
That's a weird coincidence. They're all named the same thing. Every time we pick something, we always have to put in an underscore somewhere because somebody else has taken it. It's like someone takes the account and never uses it. They just get it and it just sits there, and then we're like, yo, can we have it? And then we don't hear from them, and then we're sad.
Patent trolls. I'll basically be like the Nerd Sloth Muscle. There you go. I'll be like Maul in the cartoon that we watched.
Oh, man.
Yes. Speaking of, tell them what we watched, Joseph.
This morning, we watched WildCATS.
That was an awesome theme song.
That is a catchy theme song. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I spent I had to rewatch the show several times because I kept looping the theme song and rapping along to it.
I was gonna learn the rap because I wanted to do it on the episode, but I couldn't find the lyrics written down anywhere.
I couldn't find the lyrics either. And what's really
I like
difficult,
how all of us tried. That's awesome.
What's really difficult is the fact that those periods in the name make it kind of hard to find. And if you just search WildCATS, there's a movie called WildCATS, and
I got something about some cheerleaders.
Yeah, I used to rap that one, and my sister used to do the background female vocals, and it was pretty awesome.
Nice.
I don't understand what they say right after they finish saying WildCATS. They say something like saving people or doing something to people, and then
saving people and doing something to people.
We're heroes with some kind of powers. I don't know what it says.
Okay, I think it's we're good against evil. I think
good against evil. Okay.
I think, and I don't know, something power. I've been trying to figure this out for the better half of 20 years or closer to 25, and I can't figure it out.
Yeah, I know the rap guy at one point says, we're heroes, not zeros.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, dude, those rhyme.
And they got power to the max. I mean, come on, man. They're tough as nails.
Yes. Wish I had power to the max.
Oh man, that show was so full of like great '90s like cliche turns because it's like there's so many of these great catchphrases. Like I can't remember the last time anybody said "to the max" of anything.
The first thing I wrote down was, "This is the most '90s thing I've ever seen in my life." It's amazing,
and we lived through the '90s.
Yeah, I mean, we grew up in that time period, and this is the most '90s thing I've ever seen.
Well, let me just say real quick, WildCATS started in 94, ended in 95, created obviously by Jim Lee and Brandon Cho. The show was developed by David Wise, produced by Wildstorm Productions and Nelvana Limited, ran for 1 season, 13 episodes on the CBS network, and for a short synopsis, couldn't really find a synopsis, so here's generally what WildCATS is about. It's the universal war between two prehistoric alien races. One of the races is the heroic Kherubim, and the other is the evil Daemonites. Yep.
Like, wait, isn't that Transformers just with different names?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, kind of.
Autobots, Decepticons, Kherubim, Daemonites.
I couldn't give it a name. Kherubim? Yeah, like, how do you pronounce that? Because they were saying Kherubim?
Oh, yeah, Kherubim.
Yeah, I couldn't figure it out, honestly. Like, I kept trying to say it, and I'm like, nope, not even going to try.
I kept calling them caribou, so just...
Yeah, you know what? That's what I heard
like
a
that's
couple
what they
times.
said.
Yeah. So we'll just call him the caribou for the rest of the episode.
There you go. It makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
Like, he's a caribou warrior. And I'm just picturing some dude with antlers, like a deer with, like, machine guns and stuff, like, strapped to him. I'm like, yeah, dude.
Maul had antlers on his shoulders, so that's close enough.
Oh, that's true. He's a real caribou.
Yeah, he was the
caribou warrior.
Epitome of caribou. So, Chris, who are some actors in this show?
Okie doke. The character of Jacob Marlowe was played by Sean McCann, who's done lots of random television, most notably the voice of Grandpa on Little Bear, like one of the old Nick do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Little Bear?
Mm-hmm.
Nick Jr., that was the block it was in. Character of Spartan was voiced by Rod Wilson, not a porn star. I mean, with a name like that, you should be, but he's not. Also done a lot of random television. Currently voices a lot of stuff for Marvel animation and games. Is the voice of Longshot in the X-Men animated series and voice of Hank Pym in Avengers United They Stand. Character of Zealot was voiced by Roscoe Hanford as a girl. I've never heard that name for a female, which kind of weirded me out. And I was trying to find like pictures and stuff for the longest time because I'm like, this is so confusing. But she's only done about 4 or 5 projects, including this and voicing Miss Marvel, aka Carol Danvers, on the X-Men animated series. So there's a lot of these guys were kind of in and out of similar shows like that. Character of Grifter, voiced by Colin O'Meara, who did a lot of 90s cartoons, including Rupert, Adventures of Tintin, where he voiced Tintin, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, Beyblade, and Sailor Moon, where he voiced the character of Andrew.
Andrew, okay.
Yes.
And one of the most popular Sailor Moon characters.
Yes.
I love how they made that distinction. I was like, how do you not know Andrew? I mean, granted, your Sailor Moon episode was about half hour strictly Andrew, and I'm like, when are they going to get to the actual Sailor Scouts? God.
They're like, nah, let's just use Andrew. Character of Maul was voiced by Paul Mota, who has done some made-for-TV movies, but most notably works as an artist and an animator, where he's worked on things like Space Jam, Osmosis Jones, Curious George, and Disney's The Princess and the Frog.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's had a lot more fame as like an animator than anything else, and he's had some really cool stuff.
He's like, why would you bring up WildCATS?
Yeah, right. The character of Voodoo was voiced by Ruth Marshall, who, again, all of these people have done a lot of random television stuff, like reoccurring bit parts and stuff on all these TV shows. But she most notably played a character named Helen Edwards in the Degrassi TV series. Is that how you say it? Degrassi?
I think it's Degrassi.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't care. The character of Warblade was voiced by Dean McDermott. Again, lots of random television, kind of just guest starred circuit stuff on things like CSI, all that stuff. Married to Tori Spelling. Ta-da, random factoid. Fun.
Interesting.
And then the character of Hellspawn, voiced by Maurice Dean Wint, who's done a lot of television and some cartoons, but his most notable role was in the Captain Power series in the 80s, where he played Captain Robert Scout Baker. I cannot explain what Captain Power is, really, but it's the most 80s thing you'll ever see in your entire life, so you have to
I had his action figure.
Yeah, go look up Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future. It's amazing.
My God. I want to watch that so bad.
I immediately, looking this up, I had to tell Joseph, and like I think you immediately went and started watching some stuff. I did too. I was like, this is amazing.
Is it a movie or a TV show?
It was a TV show, but they have some movies that spawned from it too.
Okay, it's the movie that I watched. Well, I didn't watch it, but I saw that it existed. Yep.
I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Like that show is pretty much what this entire podcast is about. And I'm actually surprised that wasn't one of the first episodes because yeah, you're right. I think it might be even more 80s than Turbo Teen.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's crazy.
Screams 80s.
And that's it for the cast. That's like all the main peoples.
That's awesome. I appreciated the mall guy moving on to the animation stuff. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's nice that if that him not finding a whole lot of success in acting or voice acting stuff like that he still stayed in animation and went on to work on some really awesome things. I mean, some really inspirational stuff. Like a lot of people hate Space Jam, but I think Space Jam's freaking amazing.
How do a lot of
those people aren't my friends?
There's a lot of people that think it was a terrible movie, and I'm like, well, yeah, but that's part of the fun. Like Michael Jordan was not great, but it was still awesome.
Yeah, there's a movie where Michael Jordan and Bill Murray play basketball against a bunch of cartoons.
Exactly.
Like it's one of those things that if you weren't there, like you'll just never get it. You had to have been there.
So good, man. So good.
Yeah, that's a great movie. Screw anybody who says otherwise. They're wrong.
Yeah.
Word.
Screw them. Not literally.
No,
because we're mad at you.
They don't deserve it. Here's a few tasty marshmallows out of our big bowl of WildCATS cereal.
Oh, that sounds gross. It would just be milk with a bunch of fur and stuff in it. It sounds disgusting.
Well, I should have said the full title. It's WildCATS Covert Action Teams. That's what the acronym.
Nothing
CATS
about the
stands
show
for.
is covert.
No, it was very
everything
overt.
explodes.
Wait a minute.
It should have been Wild Oats because it was completely overt action team.
Where does the S come from? If it's
Teams.
Covert Action Teams. But no, you can't do that. You can't add the first letter of the word and then count the last letter of the word too. It would just be Wildcat.
Nope. They did it lowercase, so it counted.
Oh my God. Then you'd have to make it like Covert Action Team stuff.
No, I still like Wild Oats. That's what the name should have been.
Wild Oats. Wild Oats. Lots of fiber.
We're cooking breakfast. Wild Oats. I like where this is going already.
We got our second musical episode going. Oh yeah.
From the start.
Yes.
So for a little nerdy history lesson, the animated series is based on Jim Lee's creator-owned comic of the same name. Not Wild Oats, WildCATS, which was one of the launch titles for the newly founded Image Comics back in '92. The other launch titles included Todd McFarlane's Spawn, Rob Liefeld's Youngblood, and Eric Larson's The Savage Dragon. That's awesome what it came off of, and still Image Comics is going to this day, and it's still a very popular indie distributor. So
yeah, Image has some of my favorite stuff, honestly. Like Marvel has gotten super stale. DC's definitely doing way better right now. But Image has consistently been putting out some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So, oh man, love Image.
I will argue, though, that this era of Image, while it's very important in terms of what it did for the comic book industry, considering that it was spun off from a lot of creators who were doing a lot of big things at Marvel, but then I guess there was a little bit of there's a little bit of a tension there.
Yeah.
And they broke off and started their own company, basically kind of doing the same thing on their terms.
Mm-hmm.
But looking back, being removed from it all, and I liked a lot of those books, but the term era specific doesn't quite say it enough. I pretty much played my own drinking game today with soda, not alcohol, because I would have died, but the take a sip every time you see someone with weird headgear, shoulder pads, and a laser gun that had multiple barrels.
That means you could never read a Rob Liefeld comic ever.
Lots of pockets. Lots of pockets.
Lots of
so
pockets.
many pockets.
Yeah, but there was something very just nostalgic about it. And as much as I wanted
Yeah.
to roll my eyes, I was like, man, I ate this stuff up like you wouldn't believe. This was so much fun.
Oh yeah, everybody did, and that's why like now everybody looks at Rob Liefeld stuff and they're like, "The hell is this? Like, why did we like this?" like, oh god, his drawing was just so disproportionate and just awful. But at the time, everybody was just like, "This is great." Yeah, like Cable's biceps are bigger than a tree trunk. That's amazing. And now they're like, this makes no sense.
But this cartoon did not shy away from that at all. Like they really just
No,
went
yeah.
full tilt.
No, like one of my notes is literally when Warblade was introduced, I was like, Warblade, what a name. Jesus, this cartoon would be Rob Liefeld's wet dream.
Man, I'm sure it wasn't as packed with pockets and things as Youngblood was.
Oh yeah,
Even
That
the
was all
main
pockets.
Yeah, it was
That
all
was straight
pockets. Like one
Liefeld,
of the characters was named Pockets, and that's what he consisted of. That was his power.
his power is just pockets.
I'm not going to verify that's true, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was.
On good authority, I can verify that is definitely true.
Nice.
Secondly, Warblade discovers his powers when he becomes part of the group in the first episode, and because of this, he's the group's rookie. But in the comics, the position used to be Voodoo's, where she was the rookie of the group. And so they switched that up a little bit, and a couple other things like the human guy, their manager, Jacob
Marlowe.
Jacob Marlowe. I
Jacob
keep wanting to
Marlowe.
say Jacob Marley because I keep thinking of Scrooge, but every time they said his name, that's what I thought.
That'd be hilarious.
But in the comics, he's like a Kherubim. He's a caribou like leader who is like disguised as his human, whereas he's just purely human in the animated series.
Oh, see, I was calling him Tiny Cable.
Yeah,
He's so small.
yeah. He's
like-
like the grandpa on King of the Hill. He's got like no shins.
Oh yeah.
And because the series is marketed more towards children, speaking of voodoo, her comic book profession of exotic dancer is never mentioned.
She was an exotic dancer.
Yeah, in the comics, she's an exotic dancer, but in the animated series, they kind of made her more of a teenager like Jubilee.
I felt like her character was a lot more interesting, honestly.
Right.
And especially because with that whole prophecy thing that comes up and it's about her, that just makes it her character even more interesting. So if she was the new person, I think it would have made more sense. But
Right, but I wonder if that had to do anything with the fact that, I mean, let's be honest, this is early to mid-90s action comic books. Making the female character the lead probably wouldn't have gone down. Like, I'm even surprised that they even made any action figures for them, because they were always hard to find.
You know what's funny is the video game that rooted from this, they made a game specifically from the TV show, the cartoon, and it didn't have any of the female characters in it. You could play as Maul, Spartan, or Warblade. You could not play as any of the women.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, that sucks.
So that is definitely a product of that period of time in comics.
That's too bad. You know what? I tend to like women characters more than guy characters. They're just more interesting. They have better stories. If done well, there's usually a lot more depth and emotion to pry out of those characters than a lot of the guy characters. So it's too bad when they don't get their due.
So Chris, do you have any memories of this growing up?
Not really. I mean, like, I don't think I ever saw it, but some of the look of two of the characters specifically were familiar to me, but that was it. And that was Grifter and Hellspawn. It might be because Grifter is Deadpool with hair. Because, I mean, his mask is pretty much Deadpool's mask, but in handkerchief form instead of, like, you know, covering the head. And Hellspawn, I don't know why, but, like, he was really familiar looking to me. So I recognize those two, but wouldn't have known their names or anything about them. And that's it. I didn't know anything else about this show.
Yeah, I could have told you about Grifter and possibly Zealot, but I wouldn't have known her name. I just recognized her. Hellspawn, I guess I recognized him, but I couldn't have pointed where from. Grifter only because he's also in the New 52. And really, a lot of these characters are. Like, now that the Wildstorm was purchased by DC, they made it part of canon when the New 52 came out.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, so now there's like crossovers where I know at one point Hellspawn is in a Superman comic or vice versa. And yeah, there's a lot of crazy crossovers now. Grifter had his own solo series or solo comic for a little bit under New 52. But I don't think his is going on anymore. I'm not sure though.
Maybe that's where I've seen him before. Like I might have seen like his face or something like that on one of the comics, like browsing through DC stuff.
Mm-hmm. Could have been. And Adrian, since you suggested this, what are your childhood memories of this?
Quite a bit. Other than singing the theme song with my sister, which I still sing the theme song because it pops up on my iPod. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Oh wow!
I have a lot of like childhood TV themes on there, but no, this was surprisingly, I didn't read the comics a whole lot, though I was aware of them because at the time, if it wasn't X-Men, I rarely read it. But the animated series pretty much ruled my Saturday mornings because CBS had that. Ninja Turtles. Mm-hmm. And they actually just had a really good string of action shows, which at the time, of course, as a young boy, who doesn't love watching things explode on a Saturday morning?
Oh, yeah.
And Fox had comedy. ABC had like some really cool stuff, and especially like a lot of the Disney fare. But CBS just had all you needed to know was come 8 o'clock in the morning, things were just going to blow up for no reason. So I actually had a lot of fun with this cartoon. But the funny thing is, I don't remember a lot of it, and I own this on DVD.
Oh,
but
wow.
yeah, every time
Really?
I watch it, yeah, don't judge. Wow, everybody's voices got real low when I said that.
They actually stopped producing those, so those are rare now, those DVDs.
Oh, crap.
Yep.
Really?
Mm-hmm. The only place you can get it now that I'm aware of is either if you find someone who had it and purchased it from them, or Amazon sells it digitally, or no one sells the actual physical copies anymore.
Oh, this just completely changed the dynamic of the show. Great. Now everybody's going to hear this. And now there's going to be an angry mob of people trying to break into my house to steal my copy of WildCATS.
You have to go. You have to go on
the I'm on my way.
road show thing and try to see how much you can pick up for them as antiques.
It'd be interesting to put feelers out and just see what people would be willing to pay for it. Like, don't actually like sell it, but just find out. Be interesting.
Yeah, put a bid up on eBay, see what you get.
Well, next time I do this show, it's like, hi, I'm recording this podcast on my yacht, which I bought with my WildCATS money.
With my WildCATS
Jim
money.
Lee.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Oh, man. But yeah, I was a very big fan of the show.
Nice. And we'll be an even bigger fan after you get your WildCATS yacht. And yeah, I think the only reason that I knew about this, I mean, I knew that it existed back in the 90s, mainly because of Wizard Comics, or the Wizard magazine, because it was all over that, along with the rest of the Image stuff. I was mainly reading Spawn at the time when it came to Image, so I think I didn't avoid WildCATS. I just didn't really read it either. Same with Youngblood and same with Savage Dragon. I'm curious about Savage Dragon. I hear it's really good, but I've never read that either.
Yeah, me either.
But let's go ahead and jump into the 3 episodes we watched for today's show. Very first episode, highest rated episode, and finally a random listener chosen episode. Order may vary depending on how these episodes fall chronologically. But of course, we have to start with the very first episode, Dark Blade Falling, where Reno Bryce is recruited by the WildCATS in their fight against the Daemonites.
Reno Bryce, my God.
Dark Blade Falling. This is all so 90s.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Like, Reno Bryce becomes, like, as if that name isn't crazy enough, becomes a Warblade.
Warblade. And then, just to jump ahead a little bit, we'll go back, but he thanks Grifter at the end of the episode for giving him his name.
The part that completes it, too, is his name's Reno Bryce. He becomes Warblade. And before he even becomes Warblade, he's this giant buff dude. Like, muscles, like, just bursting out of his t-shirt.
Yeah, he's Kung Fu Master.
And he's a hacker by trade.
But he's also a Kung Fu Master, but he looks like Doc Samson.
He's got the green hair and everything, yep.
I was like, only a 90s show would be like, yeah, man, let's make him a hacker. That's edgy and cool.
Yeah, like he's at his computer, and next you know, like all of a sudden these dudes that look like Judge Doom from Who Framed Roger Rabbit show up, and next you know he starts like performing his katas. Like, wait, hold on, timeout. What happened? Wait, what?
You knew stuff was gonna go down when the main Judge Doom looking dude breaks his like little motherboard or whatever he's working on, just crumbles it, and I'm like, oh
yeah, he kicks a couple of them, and then he jumps out the window. He's like, nope, I'm out.
I like though when he tells them that he's like, I know Kung Fu, but then he does some hand motions and it's like, and I'm like, oh yeah, dude, that'll scare him.
I think that was just for kids because I'm like, okay, what's Kung Fu? And they just hand motions like, okay, in case there was anybody who didn't know, martial arts at all, we're gonna do this quick little demonstration. Then he proceeds to do like fire escape parkour.
Right. To me, as a kid, if someone karate chopped, I'm like, that's Kung Fu, that's judo, that's karate, that's everything, just karate chop.
Like So if anyone ever confronts me about something, I'm gonna just demonstrate it right in front of them. Be like, you want to fight? I know how to punch, and then I'll just like do a few punches in the air real quick. Just
yeah, you got to make the sound effects too. So, and in this episode, the Daemonites, as Judge Dooms, are after Reno Bryce because he has not transformed yet. I'm not super clear on it. So is he like part, I guess he has caribou blood in him, and his power has to be tapped out or something. Like he doesn't just develop.
It's basically just like the Inhumans from Marvel. Like they have the DNA within them and it just needs to be awakened.
Yeah.
So like with the Inhumans, they go through the Terrigenesis or whatever, like the cloud comes through and they turn to little cocoons and burst out of it and they're different. It's basically the same concept is what's happening here, except they're caribou.
Yeah, but the thing is like the Daemonites and the caribou, it looks like they've been doing this for a while. Like pretty much finding people that have this blood, but yet even though the WildCATs are at least like they're supposed to be like the caribou are supposed to be good guys, I mean they kind of did force this guy to be a soldier in this war like for no reason whatsoever, like completely by force.
I was kind of thinking about that, and especially because Warblade kind of brought it up in a way, like they didn't really fully get there. But, he kind of had the attitude of like, I don't want any part of your war. And I'm like, yeah, it kind of sucks. They basically altered him. And he'll never go back to looking like normal, I would imagine. He's forever changed and didn't, want to be or didn't ask for it. They just kind of assumed like, oh, we'll just change him and then he'll be on our side. And he's like, no, you don't. Like, I don't want to have green hair and look like Edward Scissorhands, like jerks.
And it's so funny, like Marlo at one point, because when he, he gets mad and he storms off and they stop him, like, you can't force him to be a wildcat. I'm like, wait, you just did.
What else is he going to do now that he looks like that? The end of this episode upset me. They were on Hellspawn's ship and they had him dead to rights. Maul had him.
Yes, I wrote that down. I wrote that down.
Maul
could have just crushed him right there.
In his grip, crushed him or at least captured him, but instead they're like, he drops them and they run off. Like, what the heck? There was no planning. Obviously, he's not going to stop. Come on.
Right, exactly.
And they do that multiple times in the show. And I think I wrote that down. Like, later on, they escape and it's like, oh, there's no need to chase him. I'm like, yes, there is. That's all. You have one job. This is all you do. Are you guys
just playing for fun? Like,
it's a game.
I think it's job security. Because think about it, though. Their whole sole purpose now is to fight Daemonites, but if the Daemonites are blown up, now they're just a bunch of weird superpowered freaks who are forced to live in a world that'll probably hate them, much like the X-Men. So if they figured they keep the Daemonites around, they'll always have a job to do.
But they could have at least taken the leader out, cut the head off the snake and the body dies. Come on.
I'm like, can you see Maul as a fry cook at your local like McDonald's or something? No, it's not going to happen. It's like, these fries are large and in charge.
The only thing I can come up with as to why they didn't like go through, like why Maul didn't just like crush the guy or something, is because, and it's not revealed yet. I mean, I guess they kind of hint at it, but they actually show it in one of the other episodes we watched, is that he's just another Daemonite. So he is one of the crazy lizard looking things inside of this body. So it's like, okay, so the actual body that Hellspawn is might not be a bad guy,
Right, but if that's the case, and they show this a couple times, Voodoo is able to exorcise the demons from their bodies.
Could have just done it.
They could have just captured him, done that.
That's true.
And fixed that problem.
Yeah, they fucked up. Like, there's really no skirting around it. They screwed it right there.
Like, look, we're superheroes, but we didn't say we were good at it.
Yeah, the very first episode, they messed it all up.
Seriously, and that's the very first episode, too. They have a chance to capture and or destroy their main enemy and do not go through with it.
Yeah.
So immediately I was kind of on the defensive where I was like, come on, why?
I wrote that in all caps, and it's like he's invulnerable because the whole time Hellspawn's shooting him, and just And Maul's is like, yeah,
Right.
whatever.
You know what?
That's not
One thing I
bothering
did
me.
like about Maul's power is there is a weakness to it where he gets more angry the larger he gets. In the comics, he gets less intelligent the larger he gets, so he has less control, which kind of makes more sense.
Yeah, I like that.
But the anger thing's pretty cool too, because then he just becomes kind of a Hulk.
Yeah, he gets really big and then he's too angry and can't control himself, which happens in the next episode.
Good segue.
Got it.
Next episode, Soul of a Giant, season 1, episode 7, which is the highest rated episode. This episode was pretty cool. I like this episode.
I did too.
Yeah.
Hellspawn is on a dig in I don't remember what the desert was. They're looking for this artifact, and then WildCATS come to stop them, and it's discovered that Maul's father is also part of this dig crew working for the Daemonites.
Yes.
Yeah, this was a weird one.
Terrible career choice.
Yeah, but the whole episode kind of was just very odd at first, because then they're talking about like this, I don't know, I guess it was somewhere in the Middle East, and, WildCATS basically go into like this foreign country and start blowing it up. And I know it was early 90s, and I know Desert Storm had finally been over, but I don't know, I feel like somebody in the writing crew had a little bit of an axe to grind.
They're like, let's just blow them up.
And at some point, Zealot was just kind of like, a gun is a gun. A true warrior does not hesitate.
Dang,
Wow,
right.
Thank you, NRA.
I was really confused by the flashback that Maul had because I thought it was a flashback, but I guess it turned out to be kind of a dream instead. So I was really confused as to what actually happened because he was thinking, he was awake and just thinking, and it shows him as a normal kid. And he had found something at this dig site, and he decided, let me just run across this ridiculously long 2x4 that's over the top of this giant gaping chasm. Nothing could go wrong. So he just runs across it. Dad, I found this, and then falls, and he's gonna fall in, and the thing starts collapsing and stuff, and his dad saves him. And he cuts his arm and gets this scar that they zoom in on a couple of times to show you that it's important for plot reasons. But then he starts turning into what we know as Maul. Right after the dad's like, "Oh, you're my son. You're my pride and joy. I'm so glad you're safe." Just turning into Maul, and he goes, "You're not my son," and runs away.
Yeah,
and I'm
I was
wait.
like, what is my dad?
They cut back to Maul, sitting there thinking about it, and Voodoo comes up and is talking to him, and he's like, "Yeah, I never told my dad what I turned into. How could I? He would hate me." And I'm like, "But what? Didn't your dad just didn't that just happen in your flashback?" So then I'm like, okay, I guess that didn't happen, and he was just imagining it, but they didn't explain it well.
They didn't explain it, but my take on it was that his father thought that when he fell into the pit, something took him or took over, and that's its true form. And so he's got a mixture of emotions going on. He's afraid he's just lost his son, who we just got a lot of exposition on, in that he loves his son. He's the most important thing in the world to him. So without him, he's kind of lost. And we see that the rest of the episode, actually.
Yeah, I was just so confused because it felt like his dad didn't know anything about what actually happened to him, and that things that Maul drops throughout the episode made me feel like, his change into Maul occurred later in his life, and that he just never said anything to his dad, so his dad just never heard from him again and thought he just disappeared or something. I don't know. Adrian, what do you think about that?
I don't know. I feel like it made sense to me that he would have been transformed, and then his father basically being like, like you said, you're my pride and joy. He sees this thing and he flips out instantaneously. And it was kind of a cool story because it's sort of like that idea of he is this creature, his father doesn't see that, and I kind of thought it would be a cool storyline of him trying to show that it's still his son, despite the fact that he's now this freakish Kherubim or whatever. But yet the whole idea of he didn't know that his father changed, but I'm like, so that completely disregards the last 5 minutes worth of footage.
Because then when his dad sees Maul, he doesn't recognize him, so he never knew or saw that his kid turned into anything. Jeremy, that was his name.
I still feel like he saw that, but he didn't know how to comprehend it at the time. I don't think that the show did any kind of misleads where it was him imagining what happened. I think that that's probably exactly what happened. And just for story reasons, his dad didn't recognize him or didn't remember. because it wouldn't have made as much of an impact if his dad was like, oh yeah, I remember you. You were there and my son disappeared.
Right. It was just super confusing.
I don't know, but this whole show's full of mislead. I'm sorry, but this whole show's full of misleads because then when you see him later on, his father's working for the Daemonites, and then, Voodoo does the, Daemonite scan thing. And she's like, oh no, he's legit. Like, he's not even a Daemonite. So then I'm thinking to myself, okay, so this guy's a jerk twice over. So not only in this now fake vision did he just completely disregard his son despite just telling that he loved him, now he's just completely lost all of his ethics.
What I liked about that was that that really shows that he's completely invested in his work now. Like, he's become cold after the loss of his son, and so he doesn't care who he's doing this for. He's just doing it for the sake of discovery and work. I really like this episode.
Yeah, this made me like Maul, and it made me like Voodoo a lot too, because Voodoo is like, they didn't really come out with it, but I got the feeling that Voodoo was kind of sweet on Maul a little bit, just the way she talked to him. And it was very obvious that Maul had a thing for Voodoo. So this episode made me really like those two characters a lot. And it also made me like Zealot a lot too, because this one line that she says is when Grifter, Zealot, and Warblade are trying to infiltrate this camp, and they're underneath something, like lifting it up and trying to be stealthy. And Grifter is like about to sneeze, and she just turns to him and she's like, "Do not dare." And it's just the most stern thing I've ever heard. And like, I was laughing so hard. And then Warblade just sneezes and he's like, "Sorry." So the cover's just completely blown. But
right.
Man, that cracked me up so hard. And it makes it even better, like finding out her and Grifter's kind of relationship in the next episode. But we'll get there. But yeah, that was really funny. And another thing that cracked me up was Maul. He refers to the Daemonites as, is it bug faces or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so there's a few times when he says it that it sounds like he's saying faces.
Oh.
and so every time he said it, I was dying. And I'm like, there's no way they thought that said bug faces. Like, there's no way they didn't catch that and they just let it go.
But yeah, this episode was really cool. Like, it was interesting in the show that even despite all the 90s flair and all, the swords and guns and everybody's just super gruff and trying to be a badass at all times. But this episode had a lot of heart to it, and it showed that even for a Saturday morning action series, there were moments, like you mentioned before with Zealot and Grifter, that there's some pretty decent writing buried underneath all the, all the cliche and all the normal tropes.
Yeah, they sneak it in.
I agree. Oh, and one thing, Zealot, so many of these characters remind me of like the X-Men animated series and like, like the Rob Liefeld era of X-Men. She's totally Shatterstar. Yeah, she's like a mix of that and Rachel Gray, because she's got the red marks like on her face, like Rachel has.
Oh my god, I never paid attention to that. Yeah, because she was around for quite a while. I mean, granted, before the 90s, I mean, she had a pretty big arc in like the late 80s.
Oh yeah,
because much like the other Summers, they always came back from the future and then realizing, well, they're kind of screwed up because of it, because all they know is war, and it was a lot of fun stuff. But yeah, I didn't notice that or didn't even pick up on that until you mentioned it, as far as Zealot.
Yeah, the same marking.
Wow, so they really did just kind of pick a lot from like Marvel stuff. And I'm not trying to cut them down and say that they're unoriginal, but in each character you could definitely see where the influence lies.
Oh yeah, I mean, Grifter's mask is just like Deadpool's. I mean, the design is like spot on.
There was another character named Pike, one of the villains, who looked even more like Deadpool.
Really?
Oh, the guy with the giant shoulder blades, who like not shoulder blades, but yeah, he had like the shoulder pads. Who I'm pretty sure he can't get through doors normally.
Well, let's go ahead and jump into the third episode we watched, since we've talked a little bit about it already. This episode I chose because on TV.com, the description of the show was something completely different than the episode actually was. Well, on TV.com, it said something like, Warblade is watching TV and spots a martial arts match and then decides to compete. And so he goes to compete in a martial arts tournament as Warblade. And I was like, man, this sounds hilarious. I have to grab this one. That didn't happen
at all.
Yeah, that's not at all what happened.
Not even close.
This episode is called And Then There Were None, Season 1, Episode 10. What's interesting is it kind of chains off of the previous episode well, because they were digging for this artifact there, or looking for this orb, And we find out in the last episode that Voodoo is the one who's able to actually channel this orb, to use it. Yeah. And then in this episode, we get even deeper into that as they find... They were saying, I think this is the island of the Amazon island that Wonder Woman is from, Themyscira or something.
Yeah.
And so but this is buried underwater, so they have to go and locate it, and they do eventually, but it's buried under all these rocks, so they start using these concussive bombs, or the enemies, Daemonites, get a hold of these concussive bombs to go and release it.
Yeah, this episode was wild. I don't know if anyone picked this up or not, but the part in this episode where Maul tries to save Voodoo from the explosion, did anybody notice that whole sequence was basically an edit of almost 3 or 4 different scenes from previous episodes?
Whoa, really?
Like, the scene where he first yells for Voodoo, like, it's that same scene where he first yells, I'm large and in charge, from, like, the first episode. And then the scene where she gets knocked out of the way, I could have swore it was either from the first episode or even the second, but you could definitely tell it's, like, hastily edited together. Like, other than the explosion, they didn't actually have any real footage to show, so they just hobbled it together so it looked original.
You know what's really funny about that explosion, too, is when it zooms in on the timer, there's like 37 seconds left, and Maul runs in like, no! Boom! And it wouldn't have taken him 37 seconds to get there, so if in reality he would have gotten there, grabbed her, run off, and they would have had time to have lunch or something, and then it would have exploded.
And all of a sudden, as they're like finishing their sandwiches, there's like a rumble. It's like, you hear something? Nope.
Yeah, Maul gets super hurt, even though all that happens is like his costume isn't even ruined. There's just a little bit of steam coming off, but apparently he was really hurt because he shrunk down to like human size.
Yeah, and he was a handsome purple dude.
He was a handsome purple man, yeah.
That costume, though, is like invulnerable. Or it's like part of him, because even when he first transformed in the last episode, he had that costume on.
Well, that happened with Warblade when they used the little thing on him, like, and he transformed. Like, his costume was like already inside him. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, like it's already fully formed. Like they can never take it off.
Yeah, and even one of the characters was even like, "Oh, nice costume," and I'm like, "Yeah, explain that, please. Like, where did that come from?"
I just love the scene when he's recovering in the bed and he's larger and purple, but he has like the blonde 90s hair thing going on.
And he's got a soul patch.
And he reminded me so much of like the Infraggable Crunk from Justice Friends.
Oh, yes.
Oh my God. And he had a little blonde soul patch. Oh, good Lord.
Oh, so
gross.
90s.
So gross. What I was going to say is, like, one thing I liked about this episode was that we got a lot of insight into the personalities and the, like, feelings of the characters.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, there's a lot of sexual tension in this team, like, a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Because, first of all, Zealot is super mean to Voodoo, like, because they bump into each other. Grifter's like, leave her alone. And Zealot kind of makes a remark to him, but then says, Zealot says that Voodoo is attractive. Wink, wink. So, and then Grifter's like, not to me.
She's prying to see if he finds her attractive because she's attracted to him. Let's kind of go back to what Adrian was saying about the clever writing. That's something a kid's not going to catch either. But as an adult, you're like, man, like we've been in those situations, even though Zealot is thousands of years old, so she should be past this.
But she's not human, so she may have dealt with things differently where she was from. So we get to see that she has a thing for Grifter. Grifter may or may not have a thing for her. It's kind of unclear, but since he says that he doesn't think Voodoo's attractive, you know, and says it specifically to her, then it's like kind of like, okay, well, I think he was giving you a hint. And then we see more of like Voodoo, like super upset, you know, about Maul getting injured and stuff. And Maul says something about her being like special to him and things like that. So I'm like, yeah, obviously those two and Grifter and Zealot all have things for each other. So, and it's all, you know, unspoken things, except for later when Voodoo tells Zealot to tell Grifter how she feels about him. And she's like, I can't do that.
Even warriors have trouble showing their feelings or something, she says.
It was really cool, and I was really hoping that if the show continued, they would have continued with that, because it's really fun. And by this time in the show, like by the time it's almost over, you're right, like the characters become a lot more, well, for the most part, I mean, Grifter is kind of Grifter, and Maul's Maul. Right. And they pretty much got his backstory out pretty early on. So I was like, all right, he's kind of boring now. But the Zealot dynamic is pretty cool because, here she is, this warrior, 1,000 years old. All she knows is fighting and whatnot. And like Chris had said, having something of an infatuation is just very pretty much like outside of her personal code.
Right.
So it would have been kind of fun to see that a little bit. And I guess as someone who grew up watching a lot of Moonlighting reruns, there's something about that dynamic that's always sort of fun because the two, like between Zealot and Grifter, like they're kind of going back and forth and whatnot. Like it was a lot of fun.
It almost reminded me, to mention Wonder Woman again, of Wonder Woman. Like she's a warrior princess and she doesn't know how to deal with men either. She's completely confident in everything but handling love. And that's a really mature topic to cover in a kid's cartoon like this. So what I really liked about this show was the fact that there were a lot of 90s dressings to it, but at the same time, the characters had these very human moments.
Yeah, and even it being for kids, it's kind of like, I don't think the kids would understand this at the time, but it's kind of introducing in a very subtle way the idea that, people might have feelings that, they're not communicating, and especially because when you're a kid, like if somebody likes you, what do? They tend to pick on you a little bit. So Zealot tends to be really harsh with people, especially people like Grifter, but she likes him. I mean, she's got a thing for him. So it's kind of like, I think, introducing that concept a little bit, maybe not intentionally, but I thought that was really interesting. And it was something really unexpected. And that's the thing that really made me like her character, is that they kind of showed the little kink in the armor there and made her more human in that way.
Yeah, definitely.
I really felt that at the time, there weren't too many animated series that were really geared towards adults. But I really do feel that had this maybe come out much later, now this would have probably been on like late Cartoon Network or even, I don't know, like Adult Swim or even just like another network where you can really get into a lot of the themes, because you're right, like there's a lot of really cool mature writing here, but it's a cartoon and there's action. So of course, what do you think? All right, we'll put this on Saturday mornings. We'll sell a bunch of merchandise to kids. But I remember, that's why I really don't have a lot of memories of the show other than the theme song and just the way they look, because I think a lot of stuff pretty much went over my head.
Yeah. Because other than that, it's just your typical action cartoon where it's just good guys fighting bad guys. It's very black and white in that sense.
Yeah.
An idea that really intrigued me, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, was the fact that the Daemonites are all these little green, like alien creatures, lizard-like creatures, and they possess bodies. And that's something I didn't know at first. So I thought it was really cool. And especially when we see Voodoo starting to pull the Daemonites out of some of the other characters. So then it's like, wow, like these are actually other characters, potentially other Kherubim that have been possessed. Yeah, that have been possessed like permanently, like they have been taken over. And that's just such an interesting concept, because it's like Hellspawn, he may not necessarily even be a villain, but he is because of what's taken over.
It made me wonder about that. That made me interested in him. Like, I want to know the backstory of that body that he's in, because Hellspawn is not the thing we see. Hellspawn is the little green guy inside of him. And yeah, he could be a totally different character. Maybe he's from a peaceful planet and just happens to look like a creepy demon Satan person.
Right.
But he might be a super chill guy that just really likes to hang out and like watch baseball or something, but we'll never know.
But it seems like they got kind of stuck on Earth because the rest of them really just look like Judge Doom, like you were saying earlier, Adrian.
Real quick, and this was something that really touched me in a specific way, was that that Grifter called Hellspawn a flamer. And I was dying, dude. Like, I laughed so incredibly hard. And I'm like...
I was like, I'm surprised it got away with that.
That term had to have been around back then. It had to have been. I'm like, how did that get through? Like, maybe it didn't mean the same thing as it does now, but I was like, what? Like, oh my God.
I'm pretty sure it was innocent.
And also that one scene where, in the last episode, the third episode we watched, where they're all captured, like the Daemonites are basically just like super grabby.
Oh,
and there's like one that looks like this kind of like dry humping Zealot's leg.
Oh man. So Chris, Adrian, I think it's about time we ask Voodoo to force out the Daemon spawns that possess us to this very day, our inner kids, and see what they thought of WildCATS Covert Action Teams.
At first, I was like, this cartoon is going to suck. Because the first episode was kind of dumb, but then it got really good. And I really like all the characters, like Grifter, because he's like, I will shoot everything, and I like it because I'm awesome. And his mask looks like Deadpool, which makes me smile. And I want to grow up and be big and scary like Maul. Rawr! I give this cartoon 4.5 bowls of better than the Inhuman cereal out of 5. And I kind of want to go watch more now. Bye.
While watching the WildCAT series, I went through my own series of mixed emotions. A large part of me was ashamed at how unapologetically 90s this show felt, specifically with some of the cringeworthy dialogue choices. However, once I looked past the decade-specific trappings that many shows of this time period suffered, what I then saw was potential. Though the execution was far from perfect, there was a certain strength in the lofty ideas snuck into the few episodes that we did watch: teamwork, a father's acceptance, and dealing with one's own feelings. If you were to personify WildCATS, it would most likely be a dude bro wearing sunglasses inside, but he would be inside an orphanage or soup kitchen helping those less fortunate. That said, I would give WildCATS 4 big bowls of Lucky Voodoo Charm cereal out of 5, and I think you'll be surprised if you give it a chance. Ashamed at first, but surprised. In closing, Maul taught me a very valuable lesson in this episode, that real men do cry, and then grow up, get angry, and smash things. Thanks, Maul.
Okay, so the WildCATS were fun and all, but it was really lame compared to the X-Men. I didn't really care for the characters, and it didn't make much sense most times, but Grifter was super cool, and there's a lot of action, and the theme song was really, really fun. I'd give it 3 out of 5 bowls of Kherubim cereal.
I'm going to be saying that from now on. The name itself is just completely, I don't know, but that's a whole other discussion for another time.
I think it's supposed to be like cherubs, kind of,
I
in the
was
same
just
way
thinking
that
the same thing.
Daemonites is
Like
demons.
they're playing off the cherubim, which would be angels.
Right.
Like that's the old term for angels.
So
would
it's
be
so it's
cherubim.
angels versus demons, basically.
Yeah, that's basically what it is, angels and demons.
Yeah, but then that leads into this whole philosophical debate, because I'm like, one isn't exactly inherently evil, and the other isn't inherently good, but whatever.
It's kind of sad how accurately the description of Maul growing up and getting angrier parallels real life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that episode hit hard, man.
Guys, I just figured it out. Wild Oats, okay? Wait for it, picture it. Picture a bunch of horses looking like BoJack Horseman dressed as the WildCATs in a rock band called Wild Oats.
Wild Oats.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's perfect.
Oh, that'd be great. Come on. Could you imagine like the team, like they're storming into a building, it's like, all right, let's sow our wild oats. I'm like, what?
All right, team, time to sow our wild oats. It's like, I don't think you know what that means. Quiet you.
Spartan has spoken.
Oh my God, that would have been a 6 out of 5. Like, I would have given that show a 6 out of 5.
There would be so many horse puns. Like, like, hey, don't speak to me that way. Shut up, you. Hay's for horses. Like,
oh, then you'd have to have like a Thor type character. It's like, I say thee nay.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All in favor? Yay. All opposed? Nay.
It's like, why do you keep doing that every time? It's old. Stop, please. You know you agree.
great job, team. Let's go back to the lair and eat some sugar cubes.
Yeah. Sugar cubes for everyone.
And get some rub downs. Good job, everyone.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
Do you guys have any final thoughts about WildCATs? WildCATs! Before we get out of here, Joseph, what about you?
Final thoughts. This show kind of surprised me. I was expecting it to be, what it was on the surface, which is very action-packed, very 90s, very full of explosions, gunfights, whatnot. But there was also a lot of heart to it, and that surprised me. That I did not expect. And I think that it was still underappreciated because it's something that kids can't really comprehend at the time. But watching it as an adult, you pick those things apart. You almost look for those in a show. You look for the human aspects of it. And there were a lot of human elements that were not in a lot of shows that I was watching previously. Like even in X-Men, there were some, but I don't think they were this kind of deeply wound in. So that was a pleasant surprise. And I think that I would definitely watch more of this.
Yeah, I agree completely. Like, I'm actually interested in watching more of it and reading the comics now. Like my inner kid said, the first episode was kind of lame to me, and it just seemed really contrived and plot holes everywhere. But after that, they started really grounding the characters, which is exactly what you need in a show with such an outrageous like plot and the crazy settings and costumes and characters and things like that. And it worked. It worked out really well. So For such a short run that it had, it was a great 90s cartoon, and it's definitely worth checking out if you haven't already. Like I said, I'm ready to check out more of it. Adrian, what about you?
Wow, you guys pretty much hit the nail on the head in both points. But yeah, this is a show that I felt was wasted on my youth because other than the action and the theme song, I didn't really think about it much for a lot of years. And it's funny, even watching the DVDs, like at least maybe every couple of years I'll crank it back out. But a lot of times I'm watching it as I'm about to fall asleep. So I never really sat down and really watched it. And I actually should thank you guys because now after done the show, and I realized, wow, this is a lot smarter than I thought it was originally. But yet, I feel like this is a show that should have come out now where there's a lot more sophistication when it comes to animated superhero fare, and they could have really gotten to something and not necessarily just geared it towards kids on Saturday morning, because at that point, it was always give me sugar, give me cartoons, and please, for the love of God, don't make it noon because I don't want to watch golf.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
God. My parents always ruined Saturday by turning on the golf channel at some point. Ugh.
For me, it was always Perry Mason.
Oh, but see, I loved Perry Mason as a kid.
I didn't
though.
like it as a kid. I never give it a chance. I'll say that.
Now, was it skinny Perry Mason or was it fat Perry Mason?
It was fat Perry Mason. It was no. It was like in between Perry Mason because it was still the
Oh,
It was
man,
chubby.
that's the worst.
Chubby Perry Mason.
yeah, Chubby Mason.
Chubby Mason.
That sounds like a character in like a buddy cop comedy or something.
Chubby Mason. It does. It really
It's
does.
like, you're off the case,
You're off
Chubby.
the case, Chubby.
I don't know why that sounds hilarious. Oh, my God.
Time to go sow my wild oats.
Okay, how about this then? You take the Marlowe character, keep him the same height and everything, and name him Chubby Mason.
Oh,
That
my
reminds me
God.
of
That's
the-
amazing.
That would be a
That's
much better
perfect.
name. Chubby
Chubby
Mason.
Mason. I see a spin-off
Because every
somewhere.
time they give orders, like, all right, you heard Chubby, let's go.
You don't want to make Chubby angry.
Oh, that just put a whole different idea in my head that I can't talk about on this
Damn it, Joe.
podcast.
Oh, I loved this episode just because of all the wonderful discoveries. Wild oats,
Oh,
Chubby
man.
Mason.
Now I'm never going to be able to watch the show with a straight face because everything's just going to be belly laughs the entire time.
Oh man.
It's like, and now the lost episode where Maul's father dies. It's like, oh, this is hysterical.
Oh, no.
You thanked us, Adrian, but I want to thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's probably no way I've ever would have watched this or gave
Yeah,
it a
same here.
chance.
Well, thanks.
No, but I was surprised pleasantly at how good it was. So
So was I.
were you, yeah.
No problem.
Well, listeners, it looks like our milk supply has now run dry, so it's time for us to say goodbye. And next week, we'll be watching
Star Wars Droids, suggested via YouTube by Bean Bunny. I don't think that's his real name.
Well, once again, I'm Joseph,
I'm Chris.
And I'm Adrian.
and we'll see you next Saturday. We sometimes say stuff after this.
Nope.
Presented by Nerdsloth.
A place for lazy nerds.
If you like what you heard, consider donating at patreon.com/nerdsloth so we can continue bringing you quality shows. Be sure to also leave us a review and share your favorite episodes and clips on social media. If you're looking for more content, visit us at nerdsloth.com.